Hello, everyone, and welcome to Today in the Word. My name is Jamie Janosz. I'm the managing editor of this daily devotional that is published by Moody Bible Institute. If you're not a reader, we invite you to join us at todayintheword.org, or you could download the app Today in the Word. We are talking about the book in the Old Testament, Lamentations. If you've read with us for a long time, you know we try to work our way through the entire Bible. We don't skip the hard stuff. And so today we are in the Old Testament. We are joined today by the author of this devotional study, Dr. John Koessler. He is professor emeritus at Moody Bible Institute, and John has authored many books. Most recently, When God is Silent, Let the Bible Teach You to Pray. I'll do a little show and tell right here for you. And his most recent book is on heaven, on things above, the earthly importance of heavenly reality. So go and pick those up at Amazon after this video, right? But welcome, John.
Hi, Jamie. Good to be with you.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And it's been a little while because we work on these things far in advance that you wrote the study on Lamentations. But for our readers, this is brand new. And I thought with this kind of a book, it's helpful to know a little bit about the author, perhaps, and the context of this Old Testament book.
Yeah, we don't really know that much about Jeremiah's early life. We know about the events that he went through when he wrote the prophecies that are recorded in the book of Jeremiah, and of course what he says in Lamentations. All we know is he came from a town that was located about 3 miles northeast of Jerusalem. He came from a priestly family, and that when he was first called to be a prophet, he was completely overwhelmed by it and resisted it at first, arguing that he was too young and that he didn't know how to speak. But on the other hand, I think, when you look at all of the people who have written books in the scriptures, in one sense, we probably know more about Jeremiah as a person than we do any of the other prophets. In fact, I would say that Jeremiah is the Old Testament equivalent to the Apostle John, in the sense that he is there is so much of you get so much of a sense of his personality in the way that he has written. His writing shows that he was a deeply sensitive person, that he was someone with a poetic sensibility. In fact, a lot of what he writes is
a lot of beautiful imagery, actually, in this.
Particularly in
haunting imagery.
Lamentations, which really are, it's a book of 5 poems, or 5 hymns, depending on how you want to look at it. So he is somebody, when you read his writings, you get a sense of him as a person. So that's...
Yeah. And he's called the weeping prophet, right? So this is a book of lament, and which may be a term that most of us are familiar with, if not deeply understanding it.
Yes, because of course he is like the nation. He's deeply grieved by what has happened to Judah and the destruction of Jerusalem. So his own grief is profoundly expressed, particularly in the book of Lamentations. And I think also in that he is a reflection of God's own heart. That's one of the things that you see in his sorrow. You come to understand that God does not discipline or judge lightly. He's not cavalier about it. And just as Jeremiah is brokenhearted to watch and even experience these things, you see sorrow expressed from God himself at having to do this for his people.
Yeah. And what has happened to God's people at this point?
Well, Judah as a nation has gone through what was both a national and a spiritual trauma. So the city's been sacked by the Babylonians. Its key residents have been deported. Lamentations in the first chapter compares the city to a desolate widow who is weeping at night. So the state of God's people is this one of extreme distress, physically, politically, and most of all, spiritually.
Hmm.
And so it's out of that, and this has been a long time coming. Many of the other prophets have talked about it. Jeremiah has prophesied about it. Lamentations is after the fact now, and it's
Okay.
lamenting these things.
Okay. So prophets, traditionally spoke for God and delivered messages on behalf of God to his people. And so this is speaking at a hard time in a hard place for people. And as you said, which I really appreciated, Jeremiah expresses so beautifully this kind of deep kind of ache of what's going on. Even in the very beginning of it. In the first chapter, there's all this imagery where he's comparing this deserted city and using this kind of metaphor of a weeping woman. I thought that was kind of interesting, just the way this starts compared to other books of the Bible.
Well, it's not a happy book, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I was intimidated by it at the prospect of going through it because it is a book that so frankly expresses sorrow. And that image, that opening image, I think rightly describes the position of God's people at this point in their experience. That was one of the things that made this. I mean, it's just common sense when you think about, the nation has been invaded, its people have been deported, the leaders are carried off and killed, and so it's understandable. You see it all. You kind of see it all around us today in many forms where this is taking place. Yes, of course, it's a terrible trauma. So you would expect a sense of emotional trauma, but the thing that makes this one distinct, it has to do with the spiritual element, because here is Israel, Judah, with this unique relationship among the nations with God. And so that from their perspective, this was very much like a divorce, or the image of a widow. It's one of somebody who's been cast on their own, so that they understood it. When they looked at these events, they understood it as a kind of rejection. And part of the beauty of the book of Lamentations, along with this honest expression of grief, is, first of all, a very clear message that, well, God has allowed this to take place. And in fact, in the language really of the prophets, he sent this to them because of their own rebellion. He has not forsaken them. He has, in a sense, rejected them. That is, he has turned away, but only for a moment. And so in the laments of Jeremiah, you see, first of all, the persistent and faithful love of God, his persistent commitment to people who have turned their back on him, and also his own, it's hard sometimes to use these emotional terms when you're talking about God, but his own grief in doing so, that it's not, as I said earlier, God is not cavalier in this exercise of divine judgment. He isn't just like,
They deserved it. Yeah.
Sweep them aside. So that's, I think, kind of what that image is trying to capture.
Yeah, I really kind of appreciate that thought that God turns, but it's for a purpose and it's not forever. Like he's doing something, and you captured it with the word spiritual disruption, which I really liked. That idea that the things happening around us that may be bedlam, and certainly happened here, were related to a spiritual disruption, causing people to stop and notice.
For them, of course, it's catastrophic.
Right.
It's really hard for us
Because bad as it
grasp.
gets, pretty
Yeah,
much.
it's hard. The only some of the things that maybe correspond to it are things like the Holocaust, or the level of suffering. I mean, even to the point where unless it's just hyperbole, there was even some cannibalism going on where the starvation was so great. Uh,
Hmm.
at least we know that the situation was very extreme as a result of this, and of course it raises questions for the people who are going through this. Why would God allow this to happen? And for a
Hmm.
long that was part of the spiritual struggle. Was for a long time, uh, the people of Judah were putting off the warnings of the prophets because they felt like they were protected by the presence of the temple.
Hmm.
That the temple was the place where God manifests His glory. In one sense, spiritually speaking, it was the center of the earth.
Hmm.
In fact,
Hmm.
literally, that's the way they thought of it. This is the navel of the. This is the one point
Yeah.
in Scripture is described as the navel of the earth. Um, so that by allowing these godless foreigners to come in and destroy the temple and remove the people, they were completely taken aback by that. But it didn't come quickly, and it
Okay.
didn't come without warning. And
Yeah.
they had been warned and warned and warned. And so
Hmm.
there was a very real sense where, and that is part of the lament that you hear in what Jeremiah says, is we brought this upon ourselves. In
Yeah.
a sense, we did this to ourselves, which is true of all sin.
Hmm.
This is in one sense, I think, when you come to that place where you realize the consequences of your own choices and
Yeah.
how you have persistently resisted God's efforts to turn you from that. That's the part of the grief
Hmm.
that fuels repentance. You say,
Hmm.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
When you see it, which really it does take God opening our eyes, and He does that, I think, through a combination of things. He does it partly through circumstances. He lets us experience. He gives us what we want, basically. I remember C.S. Lewis writing about this when he's writing about final judgment, and when he's talking about hell, he says essentially hell is uh, uh, hell is humanity saying to God, "My will be done,"
Hmm.
and God saying to humanity, "Thy will be done." Yes, all right. That's what you want.
Yeah.
That's what you get. When you see that, when you come to see that, there's a profound grief that
Yeah.
comes, and that's part of the what fuels the turning back to God. And you see that in Lamentations. Part of what he's lamenting, speaking on Judah's behalf.
Right. So this lament over sin, this lament over loss, there's so much that is being grieved
And
here.
he's, I love. That's one of the things I love. One of something that I love about Jeremiah is he's also deeply grieved by the experience.
Hmm.
He's not like the way I think I've heard many Christians talk about judgment today. You see this. I think you see this especially in social media. There's this mentality of people who are actually hoping for judgment.
Mm.
You hear them saying things like, "Oh, America, I want America to be judged," and there's almost a sense of glee in it. The people, of course, the people who feel that way don't realize that if that were to happen, they'd be swept up in it.
Right. Yeah. We're part of it. Yeah.
You wouldn't enjoy it. You wouldn't be happy. You wouldn't be so
Hmm.
excited about it then. What you see in Jeremiah is he understands that the people deserve this. He's deeply grieved by the experience of it, by seeing their suffering. And there are points where he seems to even take God to task,
Hmm.
where he says, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Yeah.
He's he has this sense of speaking not only to the people as a prophet, but speaking for the people. as a representative. It's a very priestly sensibility. And of course, he comes from the priestly line. His ancestors were priests. So he seems to have,
Fascinating.
I don't know if Jeremiah himself
Mhm.
was a priest. There's some difference of opinion about that.
Yeah,
But he certainly has the heart of a priest.
that's really interesting. What do you hope, modern day readers reading this thinking, why do I need to read this book that's kind of deeply depressing and full of grief, and like, what can I take away from it? What do you hope that readers take away from it?
Well, first of all, I would say that I don't know if I would describe it as deeply depressing.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that I think is very surprising about the Book of Lamentations is how much hope, how deeply embedded hope is in it. And in fact, hope is the literal center of the book. Literally at the center of the book is that wonderful section that the hymn "Great is Thy Faithfulness" comes from, and where it talks about how God's mercies are new every morning. That comes out of the Book of Lamentations,
Right.
and it is intended to be the heart of the book. That is Jeremiah's message. That despite all of this surrounding trauma and these terrible things that have happened, God is at the center.
Amen.
He's a God of hope. He's a God with a plan and a God with purpose. And that's what I would encourage people to look for as they read the Book of Lamentations. Secondly, I don't think Lamentations is ever. I'm not sure any book is in the Bible is this way, but I certainly don't think Lamentations is the kind of book that we would read for entertainment. You know what I mean? It's like
It doesn't have the fun narrative, or
yeah, well, and I'm not sure where you would find a book in the Bible that would work that way for us. That
yeah,
that if I think that what will happen is if you enter into the Book of Lamentations, you will find yourself in it. That is, you will hear Jeremiah speaking to God in ways where it will resonate with your own heart, especially if you've ever gone through any kind of grief, trial, trauma. You will completely identify with the way that he talks about the suffering, with the way he talks to God about himself, about what he's doing, the way Jeremiah talks about himself as a person. And it's deeply affirming to read that and say, I always felt this way. I could never say it. That's exactly how I feel about it. And so I think I don't think I wouldn't want to try to talk anybody into reading it. I think the people who need the book will find it, and when they find it, it will lay hold of them, and they will see themselves in it.
I love that, and I do hope that that you are those people that it finds you, and that you find yourself in it, and find words to talk to God about some difficult things that maybe you're walking through even today. We did tackle this a family study for this, but we changed it a little bit. We because there's only 4 lessons and it's a lot to take on in that. But we created what does it mean to lament for children? So different kinds of lament and how to walk kids through expressing those emotions to God. So I hope that's helpful to you as families. And we just really appreciate this study. Thank you, John, for writing this and for being our guide through it. And we ask all of you just to join us and to prayerfully ask God to speak to you through the pages of his word, which I know that he does again and again. If you haven't, please do like this video and even comment below. If you have read the Book of Lamentations, I'd be curious and what your takeaway has been on it. And we hope you'll join us for the study at todayintheword.org. Thank you so much.